Hi Gators, it's Miss Anderson. I hope you guys are doing really awesome. I'm going to start videotaping some of our math lessons that we usually do together just so that you guys have that extra help that you need. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me on Seesaw. You guys can do that too. And I'm going to be making a flip grid that you can also contact me on if you have questions. All right, friends? So we've already kind of learned this. This should just be a review and kind of breaking it into smaller chunks to make sure we really get it. But in this chapter, we're going to be learning about area and perimeter. Now remember, perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape or a figure. So that could be the outside of a rectangle. Like if I'm building a fence in my yard, how much fencing am I going to need to go around my whole yard, right? We can find perimeter by counting the squares or around the outside of the shape or the units around the outside of the shape. So I drew an example for you guys. And I'll post pictures of this too, hopefully, if you can't see. So I drew here a rectangle and I broke it into unit squares. That just means they count as one unit. So one way to solve for perimeter is to pick a starting point. So for example, I could say I'm going to start at this corner. And then I'm going to count my unit squares as I go around the outside of my shape to find out how much fence I would need for my yard or what the perimeter is. So I'm going to start here. If you want, you can draw a dot to help you remember. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to stop because I got back to that dot or right where I started. So I got to 10 units, which means that my perimeter for this shape is 10 units. And I could just write a U for units so that I don't have to write that out. Sometimes they'll tell us the units, like they might tell us it's in centimeters or feet. But if I'm not sure, I'm just going to put that U for units. Another way to do this is to count each side and then add up the sides. So for example, I see that there are 2 on this side, which means that there are 2 on that side. And I can count that there are 3 on this side, and that means that there are 3 on this side. So now that I know how many there are, I can say I'm going to do 2 this side, plus 3 this side, plus 2 this side, plus another 3 for this side. So 2 and 3 make 5. 5 and another 5 would make 10. So we still end up with 10 units. All right, my friends, now it's time to do some practice together. Go ahead and pause if you need to and rewatch my explanation if something didn't sound right. All right, friends? If you want to follow along with me, a great idea is to get just a scratch piece of paper and work these out as we go along. You're always welcome to pause the video so that I don't go ahead of you. That's one thing that's really nice about us getting to do it this way, all right? So I've drawn some different shapes here. Now, when I find perimeter, I could find it for almost any shape. It doesn't have to be a perfect square or a perfect rectangle. Sometimes they'll give you things that look like a letter T or a Z, or even something funky like this that just kind of looks like maybe an L flopped over on its side. Either way, our methods stay the same. So I want you to take a second. If, like I said, pause my video. If you have a scratch piece of paper to work this out, I want you to look at this shape right here first. So this letter T. Take a moment and draw that shape onto your paper. I'm going to get my marker ready. Oh, there we go. Wouldn't come off. All right. Now you can pick the method that works best for you. For this one, I'm going to be using my count around method. So I'm going to pick a point to start and I'm going to count my way around the shape. All right. So if you haven't worked it out yet, go ahead and pause me because I'm going to start solving. So I'm going to start maybe right here. That's my start. And I'll write start to help you guys. All right, I'm ready to count around and I'm gonna just go clockwise. So I'm gonna go around like a clock. Ready? So there's 1, here's 2, there's 3, there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I'm going to stop because I got right back to that dot that I started at. So I can look around and see that I went to 12. So my perimeter is just 12 units. Awesome, right? One thing that gets kind of tricky with these weird shapes is that they have these little nooks and corners. Sometimes my friends forget to count all the sides of the square because they think about it like one big square and they want to just count it like 1. But we can't do that for perimeter. For perimeter, we have to count all the sides that are showing on the outside of the shape. So make sure you gave it 1, 2, and you came back and got that third side when we counted to 12, all right? So I'm gonna go on to our next shape. For this one, I'm gonna count the sides ahead of time, just so that you can see what that looks like. All right, friends? So go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to work this out on your own. You can see that this time I wrote centimeters instead of units. That's because in our book, this would tell us something like, these shapes are measured by centimeters. So I should make sure to put that measurement when I'm recording my answer, right? All right, so first I'm gonna count this side because this looks easier for me. So I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna write a 3 because there's 3 centimeters on that side. Then I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 centimeters on that side. Finally, I'm gonna go 1, 2 on this side, and now I'm about halfway through my shape, right? I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3. I can't forget that little 1. Remember what I said about those corners, it can get tricky. So there's a 1 right here, and then there's 2 for this side of my shape. Now that I have that, I can add it up together. So I know that 3 plus 5 makes 8. And I'm going to count 2 more, that's 9, 10. 10 plus 3 would be 13, plus 1 more would be 14. And then I can go 15, 16 to count those last 2. So I'm going to put that I have 16 centimeters for the perimeter of that shape. All right, friends, we're in the tail end here. So you can see this one is a perfect square. You can see that by counting. I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Now, if I wanted to, I could do 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. But I know that that's repeated addition. So instead, I'm going to multiply. So I'm just going to say 3 times 4 because I have 4 groups of 3 here. So that should give me, pause if you didn't figure it out yet, 12. And then my units for this one, I just put feet, just so you guys can see that the units can really be anything. All right, my friends? I'll give you a second to look. All right, friends. Last one. This one I put my perimeter in inches as my units, just again to show that it can really be measured by all sorts of different lengths. So I'm going to count. I'm going to do my count around method just so you can see that one more time. I'm going to pick a starting point. It doesn't have to be on a corner, but I just think corners are easier. So I'm going to make that my start. And I'm going to count around the outside of my shape. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Oh, was I ready to stop yet? No, almost got tricked. 17 and 18. Now I hit my corner. All right, so I see that I went up to 18, so my answer will be a big 18 inches for my perimeter. Now, when you're trying to pick which strategy works best for you, whether you're counting round or you're adding up the sides, this is what I would recommend. If you have a shape that's a little bit weird, you can use both strategies as you can see here, but the count around strategy really helps for those weird shapes to make sure you don't forget any of those little nooks or corners or weird sides. If you have a perfect square or a perfect rectangle, it's a lot easier to just count the sides and add them up, but that's what works for me. Later, we're going to move on and not have these squares to help us, so it's a good idea to get some practice in right now with just getting used to counting those sides and adding them up as they are. All right, but those squares are there to help you in today's lesson. I'm going to be pushing out a Nearpod to you, and I'm going to share that code when I share this link. Now, you'll be able to move through the Nearpod at your own pace. It's just some practice problems for these, and it'll let me kind of check in and see how you guys are doing since I can't really check your worksheets right now. So one thing I do want to tell you though is for this Nearpod, they are going to show you a missing side problems. And these are going to seem really tricky, but they're really not. And I'm going to show you the trick. All right. So with a missing side problem, it'll be like a word problem for perimeter. And there are different kinds of word problems for perimeter. Sometimes they can just explain a shape to you and you have to figure out what that shape looks like and add up those numbers. But other times they're going to give you the perimeter and ask you, what sides did you start with if that's what you ended up with? So they're going to make you work backwards. So here's an example. If the perimeter of a rectangle is 28 centimeters and we know the length is 10 centimeters, What is the width of the rectangle? So I'm going to pause. I'm going to use my cube strategy, and I'm going to see that I've got some keywords here. I'm looking for perimeter. So I'm just going to underline that. I know it's not the question. And I know I have to draw a rectangle. That's a shape, and that's important. Because if it was a square, then I know that all my sides are the same, right? So a shape changes a lot about how we find perimeter. And I'm going to circle 28 centimeters because that's a really important number. Then they say that they know that the length, and I'm going to underline that again just to show it's important. The length is 10 centimeters, and I'm going to circle that. 10 centimeters must be really important. And now I'm going to underline my question. What is the width of the rectangle? So I need to find the width. Now remember, when you're looking at a rectangle, the width is the shorter side, and the length, which sounds like long, is the longer side. So I drew this based on this problem. I knew I had to draw a rectangle, so I drew a rectangle. I knew the length or the long side was 10 centimeters. Now for my friends who know rectangles, if this side is 10 centimeters, what is this side? Take a minute. It's 10 centimeters, right? So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. This side would also be 10 centimeters. So I know these two are 10, but I don't know these missing sides. These are my width, and I don't know what this is, but I know that when I add 10 and 10 and these two sides, it has to get up to 28. So I wrote that like this. The perimeter is going to be 10 plus some number plus that same number again, because those sides are going to be the same length, and that's going to get me to 28. So now I'm ready to solve. I'm going to take 28 because I have to work backwards, and I'm going to take away these two 10s so that I can figure out how much these two add up to. So I'm going to take away two 10s. Two 10s makes what? Makes 20, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take away 20. And if you look, 8 minus 0 is 8, right? And 2 minus 2 would be nothing, so I don't need to put anything there. So my answer is 8 centimeters. So when I add this side and this side, it makes 8. And like I said, I know that has to be the same number added to itself, because whatever I put on this side, I have to put on this side. They're going to be the same length because that's how rectangles work. So if I put 1 here, would that work? That would give me 1 plus 1. Does that equal 8? Doesn't, right? Makes 2. What about 2 plus 2? Well, that'll make 4. 3 plus 3 makes 6. What about 4 plus 4? Would that make 8? It does, right? So I know that my width for the rectangle has to be 4, because 4 plus 4 equals 8. All right, my friends, please don't hesitate to rewatch this video or reach out to me if you have any questions. I hope you guys are doing awesome and have a really great day. All right, my friends?